Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of my Build Diaries series. I have a lot of interesting things to talk about, so let's get right into it. The build is a lot of fun and I've been playing it a lot lately. I can currently run 200 corruption monoliths with no major problems and reliably kill monolith bosses and Shades of Erebus. However, I've currently hit another roadblock. This is quite unfortunate because I really want to play the build a lot more, but the build is starting to fall off in both defense and offense. One of the biggest issues I currently face that prevents me from pushing the build even further is the drop rate for the unique items I'm using. The drop rate for these items is really low, and even if I got a unique item drop that I needed, it didn't have legendary potential or even good stats. I do think that I can push the build into 300 or 400 corruption, however, I don't think the build is good for dungeon bosses, and the bosses of the monoliths sometimes can take a lot of time to take down. Don't get me wrong. Taking down these bosses is quite easy, because we have a lot of mobility and defensive stats, however the damage for the bosses is a bit low. I will now go over my gear and my skill points to give a brief overview of the current state of the build. If you want a more detailed overview, you can check out my build guide that I will release soon. The biggest change I've made so far is that I now use the unique boots Stymian Fade. These give cooldown reduction to shift, which is exactly what I'm looking for in this build. I've also tested out which gloves are the best. I personally think that Lyraka's claws are the best, because they give a lot of poison chance and also they give extra shuriken on throw. For the relic slot, the venom vial is best since it gives chance to poison on hit. However, the chance to poison it gives isn't the highest, so if you don't have a good venom vial, you can use any relic with good stats. For the rings, it's very important to have the mod that gives minus mana cost to throwing attacks. The level of the mod doesn't really matter, because the level 1 version already gives minus 3 mana, and only exalted weapons with this mod have minus 4 or minus 5, you can just use 2 with minus 3. However, I do think that it's possible to use one ring with minus 5 and leave another mod free for the other ring. But since it's really hard to get a ring like this with a tier 7 mod and also then craft it into a good item, I don't think that's an option for many people. For now, these are the most important changes I made to the build's gear. We'll talk about all of the gear in the build guide in more detail. The only other thing to mention here is that I use 2 items with plus 2 modifiers. One is plus 2 to Shuriken and the other one is plus 2 to Shift. And since we're already talking about the level of skill points, let's get into the skills section of this video. Let's talk about Shift first, since it's the most important part of this build. For the offense part of Shift, I've taken the node that throws Shuriken and also the node that drops Acid Flask when we shift. I've also taken 3 points into Consumed by Shadows, because this is really good against tanky enemies like endgame bosses. These 3 points reduce the time to kill endgame bosses quite a lot, since you can execute them at roughly 10 to 15%. On the path to the Acid Flask nodes, there are also very good defensive nodes, for example the one that gives invulnerability when shifting. On the way there's also a node that gives mana when shifting, and we can branch to the right to get extra movement speed after shifting. If you don't have plus level of shift anywhere on your gear or you don't want to take it, then you can remove the 2 momentum nodes. I personally, however, like these a lot, because they give a lot of survivability. You can shift out of dangerous situations and run away quickly. Next up is Shuriken. Here I took all the poison nodes and also the nodes that give additional Shuriken per throw. For some more utility, I took the node that reduces the mana cost and also the nodes that give pierce. The last point and plus 2 from my gear I put into entry points because this gives us some more damage. The last skill I want to talk about in this video is Acid Flask. Acid Flasks are very good because they reduce enemy poison resistance, they also damage enemies, and they even give us chance to poison on hit. There's also a node which increases the damage enemies take from poison damage. For the idols I took 2x2 idols which give poison chance on hit, and small idols which give damage over time and resistances. For my blessings I took the blessings that gave resistances, and also from the Black Sun I took the one that gives health. In the Reign of Dragons monolith there are very good options. For example, there's chance to shred poison resistance, there's poison damage, and there's also poison chance on hit. I'm not quite sure which is best. I currently use the chance to shred poison resistance. I haven't been able to test out the poison damage because I've never got one, but I think that could be the best. Another really good node is the increased dagger drop rate from Blood, Frost and Death. However, I've also never gotten this, and as you can see there's a trend in my blessings luck. A quick note on the sideline here is that the Reign of Dragons timeline has nodes that drop unique daggers. This can be used to farm smoke weavers, however, I've also gotten quite unlucky with these. Like in the last video, I've learned a lot since I made the last episode. For example, when I hit my roadblock, I was quite confused why I was suddenly getting one shot here and there. Then I found out that I wasn't paying attention to the monolith modifiers. Although most modifiers aren't too bad, there are some that can really kill the build. Since I don't have 100% crit avoidance, the nodes that give extra crit to enemies is very deadly. Also, the node that gives extra damage in general is just very dangerous. You should also be careful which nodes you take into the boss fights like the Shade of Oribus or the endgame bosses of the monoliths. One example of this is when I tried to kill the endgame boss of the Reign of Dragons timeline, but he had a Frenzy on half health modifier. That meant he charged his instant kill ability way quicker, which I wasn't prepared for. So if you want to improve in the endgame, find out which modifiers are very bad for you and which modifiers are no problem. If you have, for example, 100% crit avoidance, all crit nodes are basically free. Another big mistake I made is that I didn't look up where I can get cooldown recovery speed. I thought the modifier goes on gloves, boots and helmets, but it only goes on helmets. The good thing is that there are the boots that give increased cooldown recovery to shift. However, this is something I should have checked beforehand. But this is why I like the video format so much. Because I am doing build diaries and not build guides, I can show you my progress and I can show you the mistakes I make, so you don't have to. If you think this build could be for you, stay tuned for my build guide on this character. The best way to stay up to date is by subscribing to my channel to be notified when I upload the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, or if you didn't, like and dislike accordingly, and, if you want, write in the comments what you would like me to improve. All feedback is welcome, especially since I'm only at the start of my content creation journey. Besides that, if you have any questions, suggestions or anything to say, write it in the comments and let me know. Thank you for watching and have a great day.